What movie is the best adaptation of a novel for you? What's up, everybody? So, for me, I'm gonna have to go with The Outsiders. It's one of my favorites. There's so much of this movie that is not in the book, But one of the things I always tell people is that you want the essence of the book to be translated into the film. And Francis Ford Coppola, who directed it, absolutely did that. And when you look at the cast, I think one of the special things about the cast is like you see all these guys, and this is one of their first films that they ever really did. First big film that they ever really did. Tom Cruise, I think this was his third film, the first time ever appearing on film. And then everybody else from Ralph Macchio to C. Thomas Howell, Rob Lowe, Matt Dillon, who did a couple of other movies with Francis Ford Coppola, and just his trajectory went so high in the 80s, and he still kind of kept his integrity. He never went for the movie star roles. The late great Patrick Swayze, Emilio Estevez. I mean, these guys together, there was a lot of testosterone flying on the movie set. There's a lot of great stories that have been told, especially by Rob Lowe. I highly recommend you find them on YouTube. He tells of some really, really fun stories, about, I think he got knocked out by Tom Cruise in the hotel hallway that they were staying at because they were play fighting, and then Tom Cruise didn't want to play anymore. But it's a great way to translate the social class differences that are highlighted in the book, the vulnerability of these boys who are basically left to their own devices without any parental supervision at all. I mean, especially Ralph Macchio's character. He basically just wants to get away because his parents are just so toxic and abusive in the household. The three brothers, played by Swayze, Lowe, and Howell, they don't have parents. Patrick Swayze is basically their de facto father. And it's all just like really, really well done. The pacing of it is great. Diane Lane is in this as Cherry Valance. There's some really great back and forth scenes between her and Matt Dillon's character, which is not in the book at all. There's a specific moment where she says to C. Thomas Howell's character, Ponyboy, is like, I hope I never see Dally again. Dallas, played by Matt Dillon, is like, I hope I never see him again because I'll probably just fall in love with him. And comes right after the scene where she's basically screaming at him in his face at the drive-in, And there are a lot of these moments where the friendship feels real, the vulnerability feels real. I mean, these guys were 18, 19, 20 years old, but their performances are just so believable. They don't come across as young actors who are trying to figure things out, you know. And I like how the structure of it is very different from the book. So in the book, he needs to write a story for his English class so that he can pass and not flunk out of high school. And so he basically starts to tell the story of what happens from the beginning of the story. So the end is kind of like the beginning. And it's a nice little adjustment, but I think it's a really, really well done one, where the beginning of the movie starts with him thinking about, okay, what am I going to write about? And at the end of the movie, he starts the first words, which are the first words of the book. So it's a nice little 360 connection there, And I think a nice little touch as well that they added was the voiceover and that Ralph Macchio gives when he recites one of the poems, and really the letter that he writes for Ponyboy. In the book, he just reads it, but in the movie, for cinematic purposes, you see a superimposed image of Ralph Macchio kind of reciting the letter, and I thought that was a nice way of like adjusting it for the movie translation. Anyways, it's an absolute classic. Highly recommend you watch it. And what about you guys? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Smash that like button, give me a follow, and I'll see you guys next time.